everybody, to episode 5 of the Cloud Code Life podcast. The whole crew is here. Antonio, Rishabh, myself, and yeah, can't believe
Hello.
it. Episode 5. We're already a month into doing this. I feel like it's getting better each episode. But today we're talking projects we've built at work. When I first sort of thought about the idea, I thought we could like couple in like personal projects, but then I realized that could be an entire episode on its own. So we'll try to just talk about projects that we've built at work, and like the first projects that we've ever like worked on, first projects that we've led, successes, failures, things like that, right? But we could start with the weekly stand-up first. Who wants to go first?
I can go. So my major highlight of the week was I made birria tacos from scratch again and used a new recipe this time, and it worked out very nice. I made like for a small army of like 7-8 people, and also I started venturing into tech TikTok. So now I just posted my very first episode of a little React series. So if you don't know React, Gwen, I'm looking at you, and if you don't know React and you want to learn React, you can follow the series along, like small tidbits of React every so often, depends on how long it takes to build, but you can follow me on Antonio_Lofiego, same thing as my Twitter handle.
Cool. I mean, to be fair, I was the first one to comment on your TikTok, so
Yeah.
but yeah, that's awesome. Rishabh, what do you got for us weekly stand-up?
Yeah, for the TikTok part, pretty same. Yeah, I dove into TikTok too, and I think so far I have 3 videos, and just trying to be consistent. And most of the content would be cloud related. So yeah, go check it out. Rishabh in Cloud. I couldn't get my same handle as Twitter, so it's
someone else took it.
Yeah, so it's Rishabh in Cloud. But yeah, other than that, I think I went over the volleyball game last time, and I'll go over this time too, because we're still ranking 1, and
Nice.
Our team finally decided to have our own t-shirts for the team because they think we'll win this time. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about designing those.
Nice.
Other than that, work's been busy since it was end of month. A lot of data aggregation and stuff, billing related stuff. So yeah, that
Cool.
was my stand-up.
All right, maybe we'll talk more about like stuff you're working on during like the actual like topic of this week. For me, so I'm doing my first conference next week, I think before the new episode drops, so I'm talking about it now because it's what I've been working on. It's an Azure Functions crash course, and I'm also doing a first sort of like pre-event to that conference. The conference is more serverless, and during the free event, like the pre-event, I guess, we're with the Microsoft Reactor. It's going to be an overview of Azure Serverless, and if you're one of the first 50 people to check in, you win a free ticket to the More Serverless conference. And there's like a pretty like long lineup to the More Serverless. I think Ciara Ford is doing a talk there about some AWS serverless stuff. I know Alice Patel is also doing some stuff at there, and there's like a bunch of other people talking. Someone's doing something on FaunaDB, and then I'll be doing some Azure stuff there. So I'll make sure to link that, both the event that you can attend to check in and win a free ticket, and then the actual conference itself. And that's what I'm working on. I'm happy to sort of that it's happening and be done, because then I get to move into more like a Blazor focus, which is what I've been trying to focus in on. So yeah, that'll be fun. But no, I probably won't pick up React anytime soon. But I'll watch your TikToks, Al.
Dang it. Might as well try.
They're all online. Yeah. So that's my stand up. Let's dive right into the topic. We're talking projects we've built at work, and hopefully we'll be a little bit more tech focused this time. I know people ask us all the time. Like, what are things we've built? What are things we can build? For like, or what are things we can expect to work on, and that kind of stuff. So I figured, fantastic topic for us to talk about. And this first question I got for y'all is, what is your first project that you helped build at work? We can keep this maybe like cloud focus, like as long as your responsibilities had something to do with cloud, like not necessarily like cloud in the title, but cloud focused. Then let us know what that first project was. I could start. My first one was automating some Jira things. Like we used Jira ticketing for like tracking all the stuff that engineering had to do, and then we needed to build some reports, and I think that was like in not Power BI. What's the other really big one?
Tableau.
Yes, Tableau. So we need to pull the Jira data in to build reports from Tableau, but there was nothing there in the middle. So someone was like downloading like a CSV from Jira and then formatting it correctly, or I think it was going then to SQL Server, and then from there is being pulled into Tableau. So yeah, it was quite manual. So I built, I think I used Logic Apps and an Azure function to sort of automate, to be sort of like that middleman to get the data where it needed to be. And then, yeah, so the Logic app would download the data from the Jira API, parse the data, and insert it into a file into blob storage. And then I had some sort of like a bash script. No, it's not bash. What's the Windows one?
PowerShell?
No. There's another.
Windows terminal. No, Windows command prompt.
Yeah, but what is the file? But it's not bash.
I'm not sure.
Oh. So it's command prompt, but
yeah, it's command
the actual
prompt.
file name.
Yeah, what
shell
is
script.
Is it shell?
All
right, I'll Google it while one of you are talking about yours. But anyway, it was every morning, and then we had some sort of software that was called, oh my goodness, I can't remember what we used for like running daily tasks on all our servers, because our servers were really old. So like if it was like an up-to-date like Windows server, I could easily just use a connector from Logic Apps to like push, or maybe even a binding from functions. But our servers were like 2008, so we had to make all these like band-aids and workarounds to get the data flowing. But anyway, we had one of those files that would run. All right, you can expect the blob, or like the actual. AZ copy. Have you ever used AZ copy, Richard? So anyway, the command prompt or whatever would run AZ copy to pull from the blob storage and then upload the data into the server. And then from SQL Server, there was some sort of script that would run also and then insert it into Tableau, or have the data available for Tableau. So that was like the first one that I helped build, I guess. Yeah, that was such a pain. But we can talk about like struggles and successes later on. Yeah, that was my first one. Now I'm going to Google what it's called while someone else talks about their first project.
Want to go ahead, Antonio?
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one would be considered first. If we are like closing it to the cloud, it wasn't specifically only cloud-based, but there was like a good component of cloud deployment and such. But basically my very first project was my intern project during my second internship during my master's degree. Basically, we were building this tool that was automating allocation decision for SKUs for products across different distribution centers. And so basically we built all of these like larger machine learning model that was taking historical data, seeing where it was purchased from most likely, and then estimate like forecast how close the new demand is from like certain distribution centers across the country, so that you say, oh, if a person buys from California, we have a distribution center in Las Vegas, then we're gonna stock more in Las Vegas because the people that are in California can get it without having to ship it from across the country and such. The larger deployment portion was actually getting this to run on a schedule on GCP, which is the platform that my previous company was using, and we were using VMs. We tried to do some serverless related stuff for doing inference against this model. The model was stored on a VM, like a super beefy VM, because I wasn't overly great at doing parallelization, and it also was a type of like a model that wasn't like very lending itself very well to parallelization anyways. So we had to just spin up this like huge VM that was like $15 an hour or something, and it ran. It was wonderful and everything, and it worked out really well. And then we were using some GCP cloud functions, I think they're called, like the Lambda equivalent, to Cloud Run or Cloud Function or whatever it is, to actually do inference against this model that was stored in this EC2, and it was spitting out these tables of like lookup tables. So that was very fun. It was, and then a cron job to retrain on a certain like flexibility of time. And that was my very first. That was like had a degree of cloud deployments. There's other that was first project itself, but I guess we're gonna talk about it after.
Yeah. Oh, I figured it's .bat.
Oh, batch scripts.
.bat. Now I remember.
I see.
Yeah. So it just called like AZ copy, which is sort of like a command line for Azure storage
Copying,
stuff. Yeah. Okay. Well, good thing I found that, because it was not going to let me be in peace. Anyway, Rishabh, what's yours? What's your first project that you helped build at work?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's not tied up to cloud. It is in a certain way, but it was not totally in cloud. I was also in, like, this was when I was interning at this company, and we had some dashboards that were built around CloudWatch because we used AWS primarily, and we also used PRTG for monitoring different metrics for the app itself. And the project was to have it configured in Raspberry Pi so that we could plug in Raspberry Pis behind TVs. And the first thing it does is boots up, opens up Chromium, goes into full screen mode, and opens that dashboard. So, yeah. And this was an internal project previously, and dev just didn't have the bandwidth to work on this because they had other cooler and important stuff to work on. So as an intern, I was like, sure. I haven't looked at a Raspberry Pi. I didn't know what a Raspberry Pi was at that point. But yeah, it was really interesting. I do remember I had to learn Bash to some extent to just automate all of this. And then I know some of the customer care team and then the sales team reached out. They're like, oh, could you do this for other dashboards? We have our own dashboards too, and we have a spare TV like sitting in our offices where we would love to see something going on 24/7. So basically, yeah, I did a pretty good documentation internally. I'll have to look it up, but what I did end up doing is it toggled through like 3 web pages every 5 seconds. And those 3 web pages would serve whatever the dashboards that were built either beforehand, or there were some that I had to build custom ones based on the needs for like cloud team, QA team, and then all of the different teams. So yeah, that was my first project.
I remember in the help desk gig, they would have something similar, like dashboards in all their, because it was a health center, so they had like smaller health centers. So in all there was like 20 of them. They would have, do you know, thin clients, like those really tiny computers that like have like, I don't know, 15 megabytes of RAM, that it's so terrible. But the issue was always that sometimes they needed to restart because they were just terrible machines, and the staff, there wasn't like IT staff at every center. So kind of walking them through like how to troubleshoot it, like never went well. So it was kind of just like a fluke. Like it worked sometimes, and it was. That
reminds me, that was the first thing that they gave me to do this stuff on the Intel, the little
They're
USB
They're
sticks.
so bad.
Yeah, that run Windows. I don't even know what
some
version
weird,
of Windows.
some weird version of Windows though.
Yeah, and it would crash as soon as it opened the Chrome because Chrome is just Chrome.
I remember this scheduler. It was called Jam's Windows Server Scheduler. That's what we used to run our bat scripts and all that kind of stuff. Okay, good thing I found that too. All right, so now that we're talking about struggles, that was kind of like my follow-up question. Like, while working on these first like initial projects, what were these struggles that we encountered, and how did we like work through them, or maybe we didn't work through them? I feel like we lost Alf, but I can go first. I think everything that I've worked on has been internal, like internal tooling for the engineering team, for cloud ops, DevOps, all that kind of stuff. So the hardest part wasn't even the technical thing, because I feel like I could figure all of that out. The hardest part was, I feel like, well, in my case, I'm not going to generalize it, but when it's internal tooling, the requirements and getting upfront everything that you need isn't taken as seriously, because there's no like direct customer or client value that you can associate with it. So just like talking to the different people associated, like what do you need it to do, where does it pull from, all this stuff, I feel like wasn't as fluid and as straightforward as it could have been. I think that was like the biggest struggle, just the communication around it. Because I would implement something and it's like, no, actually we need this to run daily or at this specific times, and then I would have to go and change things. I think that like, yeah, around that, and also just like being relatively new at the role and like career in general, and like not feeling as confident to like ask questions and things like that. That was definitely one of my probably biggest struggles building like that first thing.
Yeah, I think I ran into the same issue as I said. Like, there were different teams involved, or not involved. Like, they loved the project that I was building, and they were like, oh, we need it too. But then there was no sort of like regular communication on what the actual needs were. And then I would have to figure out a way to I was just shy because I was just an intern during that, and I was young, so I just didn't have the courage. Yeah, I didn't have the courage to just go ahead and say, hey, by the way, I'm still working on this. Could you like help me try understand what is exactly that you need? And oftentimes people are like, especially with different teams, people are busy with their like day-to-day stuff that's client facing and customer facing, that brings value to the company's revenue. So yeah, I think at some to some extent I had that struggle, but also just technically, I often find myself, especially with this project, it was that I was not technically capable in the beginning because I didn't know what Pi was and what Bash scripting looked like, or even I didn't know what like PRTG and CloudWatch was because I wasn't aware about AWS. So I think it took me a month to just get like up to speed and learn Bash and figure out how to, especially even like how you burn an SD card and make sure like the Pi boots up and gets an IP address so you can SSH into it, all that good stuff. But yeah, I think technically it's interesting. Like, there are still struggles, but they're entertaining because you're learning something new, right? But yeah, I would agree on the communication part of things, especially if you're working on an internal project.
I would say that like the biggest struggle was really organizing the work among like a few people. Like, I was an intern project, but I was leading it. Like, it was me and another intern, and the key problem is that we came from like the background of like more data science oriented stuff, so machine learning and similar, and it wasn't a lot of like deployment like MLOps or more like strict software engineering at that point. And one thing that really started struggling was to the point where you have code that is like works, but is like really hard to maintain, and actually rethinking how to organize the code in a way that is reusable and maintainable, and so that other people can actually work on it without you being there and like being like the little like awk on the like on the bed or something, like behind waiting. And that has been like a big struggle, because at that point I wasn't even that deep into like software engineering practices overall. Like it was like a code works, me good. Like that was my mentality at that point, especially because coming from a more data science program, there is not really a lot of focus on like writing good code. It's more scientific code. Like if it works, it works. So that has been a big struggle for me, and it took a little bit of time to rewire my brain to be more like, okay, this works, but does it work in the use case that is for the company? Like because this has to be an inference that is pretty fast, but it takes like 2 minutes to run. How can we make it so that it doesn't run? So it was like it doesn't run in that long of a time. How can we make it so that it's faster? What services can we use? What type of like inference like methods of inference can we use in similar? So that was a lot of fun, but it was a struggle because there was a lot of things that I never really touched upon.
Okay, so I feel like our struggles are going to lead into the discussion of the successes that we also found, like working with these beginner projects, right? Because it sounds like it's all stuff that we eventually overcame. I think like the biggest thing that came out of like working on the first project at the gig was people started to trust me and to realize like how capable I actually was, and I like pulled it off, even though I think it took like way longer than it was supposed to. I think they originally assigned like this will take you 2 weeks, and ended up taking like a month and a half, but I got it through, and I ended up doing like a presentation, which I feel like I bombed because I don't know, I was just like nervous and stuff like that. But what I got out of it, and like the major success was like my team started to trust me and realize like, oh, you're not just this like kid who's just here, right? Like you actually are willing to put in the work, and like you got this working, and we could see the end result. I don't know if that was necessarily how they actually felt, but that's how I ended up feeling. And then after that first project, I was like especially after doing like the first presentation, because we would do showcases once everyone finished like a project, they would do a showcase. So after that, I remember leaving it, and I felt kind of bad because like I didn't get any questions or anything like that. Like nobody asked. Like usually people would ask questions about like, hey, why'd you build this, that kind of stuff. But I also realized that I was building something that was sort of like, I guess, different, like using different things. Like no one had really used logic apps or no code or serverless things and kind of that stuff. But after like I got over that, I felt like, wow, I really, because at the beginning I felt like I have no idea how I'm going to figure this out, right? Like, and then throughout the 6 weeks that it took me to do at the end, like I pieced it all together, and I felt invincible. So definitely like the increase in like self-esteem towards my own like skill set, and then the way others saw me as well, like definitely improved. So it was absolutely worth it, like struggling through it and like having to talk to everyone and ask different questions, and not one being on the same page, and that kind of stuff.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think for me, the key takeaway, as Gwen said, was trust, and also that I landed a full-time role after this project that I did. This was the the last project. Yeah, and because I think they weren't expecting me to work on this, or at least because it was it was not a paid internship. So yeah, and the project was pending for like 8 months. So someone had this idea 8 months ago, and they were like, "Oh, we will do this. We'll do this."
Someone will do it.
Comes. Yeah, even though I took like 30 days, but yeah, they were happy that we have something running on these black TVs that they have placed like around the offices. Oh, they had 4 of them. So, but yeah, I think technically I would say I gained a lot of like, I fell in love with Linux and Raspberry Pis. I'm like, these things are so powerful, and they're so tiny. And also just the fact that I could like create dashboards and stuff was really cool, because the like dashboards to me at that time was like, oh, these are such cool things, and a really cool way to display data, because honestly I didn't see any dashboards before that. But yeah, I think trust, and I just ended up staying there permanently with my full-time offer. So
very similar to me, like the internship thing, struggling and everything. It was like an 8-10 weeks internship specifically, and ended up like turning into a full-time offer. So that was the like largest success. And for me, like another part of the success was that the experience itself led me more to be interested in like the struggle of not knowing software engineering led me to be interested in software engineering and also cloud related stuff, because it was like, oh, I use this and I struggled a ton. I want to get better at it because it was interesting to see how it turned out. So I want to keep doing that. So that was really the spark that made everything else fall into into place. And I feel like that's a success on its own. And then I got a job out of it, so it's definitely another success. But definitely the more long-term success, I feel, is the spark to the interest in word that I wasn't thinking about, because before I was very focused on like more data analytics or similar, and now I'm more geared towards software engineering, cloud, and all of the fun stuff that we do around here.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is Googling stuff. So what I would do in the beginning of this project was I would go to my supervisor or mentor while I was interning, and I would be like, hey, I don't know how you do this. He helped me twice. And then afterwards he was like, just Google it because that's what I do. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, so sometimes he would be like, yeah, I don't remember it top of my head. So I would just Google it, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, how do you know what to Google? He's like, just try it and then you'll eventually get good at it. So yeah, just the problem solving and also like the Googling aspect of it, figuring things out, I think was another skill.
Yeah, that troubleshooting and the Google searching skills is definitely something that you develop as well. Like we're all of us are like so much better at finding our answers now than we were getting there, right? Yeah, definitely a skill. Here's a question that I didn't have listed, but now that you both said that you sort of were able to gain full-time jobs because of these projects. It's like, say someone's an intern right now, or maybe, I don't know, in a temporary or a contract role. Like, do you have any tips as to how they could probably like help them find projects where it could help them make their case for a full-time role, or like any sort of advice or anything around that?
Show up. Mostly it's as a way of like being interested. Like for me it was maintaining like very like consistent conversation with my manager and also with the team that wasn't working directly with me, but it was like part of the over like larger team, and like keeping them updated, like asking questions, showing interest in the things that they were doing, and not fake interest. It's not like, oh, I have to tell you that I'm interested, and then as soon as you finish I'm gonna like down the drain or whatever you just said. But it was interesting understanding how things were working. Like it gave me an idea about the company first, which is good, especially if you're looking to like stay at the company, but also give you an idea of like how other people are approaching like problems, or are approaching ways of like finding a solution to certain tasks that they need to fulfill. And overall also getting in touch with other like departments, like all adjacent to the tech team anyways, but was just interesting understanding how overall the company was working, which kinda I should have like vetted a little bit more with the knowledge of like posterior knowledge, but definitely for the time being was like super important to me to understand how a tech team like that does it professionally do it.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. Just show up and just ask if you don't have anything to work on. And that was the case with me. Like when I started, they recently moved to this new office. By recently, I think it was like 9 to 10 months. And the first thing that I was told to work on was drawing a network map of the entire office. So like where are data ports, where are the telephone ports, so where the phones hook up. So I would go under every desk and like bug people, be like, hey, I just need to see those ports and the number on those ports. They'll be like, sure. But that, I was just open to like learning. So I did that. And then after that, my supervisor was like, okay, there is some cleanup we need on our Jira ticketing system. I'm like, sure. I'm like, what do I need to do? He's like, identify the subject and then label the ticket accordingly. I'm like, okay, I could do that. It was a lot of manual tasks, but I did it anyways. And then from that, the level of tasks went, like the technical level of tasks that I was being assigned just went up and up. So after that, they were like, oh, we have a few old servers that needs patching. Could you take care of that? I'm like, sure, why not? And then patching, and then that's how I ended up getting this Raspberry Pi project, because they didn't have anything else to give to me. They're like, oh, maybe you want to do this because this will take a long time and you could have a good project on your resume after you're done interning here. So yeah, I think just showing up and being open to like any task that is being assigned and just asking.
Absolutely. I was just gonna add that, like, I feel like at the beginning, when you're in those roles, internship or like at entry level, like they're also like trying to like get a feel for what your skill set is, right? And if you're trying to advance, you got to work your way up there. As much as like, you know, there's at the beginning, I feel like there's a lot of work that most of us don't like. We just have to get done. You just kind of have to like get it done. But the thing is, like, it's so also like super general. So, and you know, as you go up, you specialize more, but you get to have these conversations with a bunch of people. Like in my example, with building like the internal tools, like I spoke with people from, like, I remember particularly like the CTO and people on the business and the sales team, all those kinds of people, and I'll talk about this later when we have a couple of other points on this, but those eventually led to way bigger projects that eventually helped me get promoted and that kind of stuff. But yeah, you really never know what you can gain from like any project that you work on, right? And if it might be something that you're not interested in, but you know, you'll be able to use it as leverage to keep growing no matter what.
This kind of leads to like another interesting question, because we talk about a lot like things that maybe you don't like to do or other things that you're looking for to work on. Like, so do you have any experiences in like things like you wanted to work on but it's like didn't get the chance to, or things that you didn't work to but you had like you like kind of were forced to? Like, I have plenty.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason I learned C# was because I was put on a project that I didn't want to work on. But looking back now, I'm like, I would have never learned C# and .NET if I didn't get into that project. It was something with data and SSIS and stuff like that. I had to clean some data with some C# servers. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I didn't want to work on that project because the lead engineer was just not a really cool dude to work with. It's like super like typical, like stereotypical engineer, like very condescending. Like you would ask for help and they would like not help you, that kind of stuff, right? And that's the reason. It wasn't necessarily the tech or anything like that, but that was the reason I didn't want to work on that project. But I saw it through, and at the end, this person was like, "Oh yeah, great job," and stuff like that. And I was like, man, F you, because he made like everyone's like life at their like hell. Yeah, but the main reason was just that person. But I ended up spending a couple months on that project because it was like ongoing kind of thing, and we didn't really have other projects going on that were in my role because we were in like during like waiting to sign a contract to get our migration stuff going. So there's always like that when you work with like a third party to help you, there's always that waiting time of like, oh, we got to figure out the requirements and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, we were waiting for that. So I was working with this person, and it ended up being a couple of months, and it was just C# every single day for like weeks. And that's how I learned it. And I'll give it to him. He was like really good at C#. That's for sure. Like I learned a lot from him, and his code is well documented. He was just kind of hard to work with. But that was like one project that I thought I didn't want to work on. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, not any particular projects that I didn't want to work, but just like when you're in the transition phase. So I have transitioned between teams from like tech support to cloud, and then from cloud to DevOps. And like I think everybody would agree, who's going through a transition, they don't happen fast. And just the time that it takes for someone to like shift their responsibilities, I don't like that, because I'm still working on my old responsibilities, whereas I should be working towards all these new projects that my team has been assigned. I just hate that. I don't know. There's no particular project that I hated or didn't want to do.
I guess there's nothing really that I like. There's just a lot of like projects that were underutilized, like where you feel like severely underutilized. Like, I don't know, there is maybe like some like SQL linting or something, or there's like some like related to data analytics that is just like putting together a few tables that are like very easy to put together, but like do it on such a quite consistent basis that it's like I thought like I was hired because of like, I don't know, my machine learning and like modeling and statistical like analysis, and a lot of what I'm doing is just pulling reports together in SQL and then like forwarding to Tableau. And I feel like it's not that it's a bad position, or it's like it's not like a bad project, like it's just like it was not the field or like the topics, the things that I was hired to do. And it was so consistent that I just like was like, man, I don't know if this moved forward, like which also like made me like very happy when I got to work on one or two projects that were very, very, very interesting, but it felt more like that was the exception that confirmed the rule. And it was like, oh man, I get to work on this random like kind of token projects just randomly, instead of like being that's what I do on a consistent basis, like that's what I want to do and what I work on. And instead I just get to do like some minor, like some other things that are more related to like maybe, I don't know, a data engineering position, which I'm not interested in and I'm not hired to do. So
that leads into projects that you wanted to work on but didn't get to. I know there was in my role, they were building like an API, like a brand new API, and it wasn't going to be used as much. It was like a kind of like a small time project, but I wanted to like work on it and sort of own the project because I wanted to implement it with like serverless functions. I thought it would have been like a fantastic way to prove to them like serverless is like a legit solution that we could use. And then I was in the talks, like all the organized, like the first, projects, the first meetings to organize it. I was in all those meetings and like figuring out the requirements and stuff like that. And then eventually one of the more senior engineers was like, no, let's just build this in like more like traditional kind of thing. And then I didn't get to work on it. Kind of sucked. But besides that, I think I've gotten like my fair share of like working on things that I have quite enjoyed.
I feel for me, I wanted to work more in close contact with a bunch of tech teams, like maybe back-end or front-end engineering related stuff. Like I had plenty of like time like to spend, because I was working on like certain projects that really took less time than it was allotted for like a Jira ticket and similar. And so when it was like maybe towards the end of the week, I wanted to work on something interesting. So I was always pinging someone from the other, like from my other teams, like the tech teams, and like, oh yeah, like if you have anything interesting that you like, a ticket that you may need work on and similar, like need help with or similar, let me know. If you have like a proof of concept for something that you would like to explore, let me know. And it was like always yeah, and it never really turned out to be an like opportunity there, and I was always like just sometimes just sitting, but that was annoying, because I kind of wanted to get the exposure to the more like traditional tech team compared to like the data team. And which is different to like my current job, where I'm like the data team is part of the tech team. Before they were like completely two separate teams, so that was a little bit annoying to a degree for my career interests.
Okay. Rishabh, you got any projects that you didn't get to work on?
Yeah, there were a couple, but I think it was just because of the fact that I didn't had enough experience and enough technical knowledge. Like I wasn't supposed to work on them because of lack of these. I don't like. I would have loved to work on those, but I knew myself that yeah, I'm not the right person right now. Um, but yeah, later the projects were already done by the time I got like upskilled myself.
All right, cool. That leads me into the question of what's the most impactful project that we've built so far in our careers, and you could have multiple if that's the case. But I think for me was again another Azure Functions project and another internal tool, but this one did have sort of like a customer value tied to it because so it was this manual task. We had two sort of customer success people that would have to pull. It was about 50 files from a web. So one of our websites would generate these files every morning, and then we had this. They had to submit it to this other website within like I think it was like 8 a.m. to like 9:59, something very specific in the morning, every morning at that time. So it would take both of them like 2 hours to go through all the files because each file also had a set of credentials. Like you would have to log into the website, use the credential for the correct file, and then wait for the success message, log out, and then do it the same for the rest of the 49 files. And the number of files would increase as we would onboard clients. So yeah, they were spending like 2 hours every single day, and that you could calculate what's an hour of their time, what's 2 hours of their time, and spread it over the week. So it was like 20 hours or something like that over the week, plus all like the credential management and all that kind of stuff. So I think I ended up using. So I had one of the developers from the website that generated the file, like have it instead of going to just like the location that I was going to, also send it to a blob container, which is like a pretty easy like additional line of code because it was in .NET anyway. So it was sending it to there, and then I had a function with a blob trigger that would respond to whenever there were new files, and we had the format of the name. I just used that to reference credentials in Key Vault. So the file would come in and then pull in the right credentials depending on the name of the file. So pull the credentials, parse the XML data, and then luckily this website that they were submitting to had an API, so we could submit the data with via the API, the correct credentials, and then it would return a response message, successful or not successful. So I would save that into I think Azure Monitor. It would go to like just like as a log message kind of thing. So yeah, I would run every day, and then I would pull like all the log message like after 10, because I knew like everything had to be done by 10. So after 10, I built like a static, I think it was like Blazor WebAssembly at the front, and then it was like a function that was pulling sort of like Azure Static Web Apps, but before Static Web Apps, because I know it was deployed on Blob Storage, like the static site, and it would just pull the log messages from each execution of the function if it was like the response, so if it's successful or not successful, and then they would log in, like go and visit the site, and they would view like all like the table of the response messages, and that's all they had to do. If there was ever one that said not successful or failure, whatever the message was, they would probably ping me like, hey, this one didn't work for some reason, and then it could have been like a typo in the name or the credential expired or something like that. From that, that turned into me creating like also like a tool using like the Python Key Vault SDK for them to actually update the credentials in Key Vault, because I think they had to like cycle the passwords like every 30 days or something like that, because that website was like super, it was like very specific and very secure, so they would have to like update the passwords. But yeah, and I made it like a console app or something like that for them to be able to do that. And eventually that website, like that static site, turned into more of like a internal website, and I built like more functionality on top of it. It turned into a Blazor server project that also you would be able to update like SQL tables from there, because they used to have to like go directly into SQL Server and like update them. But then I sort of built like just like a page in front with like Blazor components that you could edit, and you can hit submit, and then would use Azure Data Factory and that stuff to update the SQL table. It turned into like this bigger thing. And eventually, like before I left, they were also in the talks of like adding more functionality to that site. So yeah, that turned into a big thing. The whole solution ran for like 30 cents a month. So, you know, comparing like 20 hours of their time per week into like 30 cents a month. The function ran completely free because there's a $1 million execution grant monthly per subscription, and it wasn't getting executed that many times, so it was just stories that we were paying for. And after I built that, they were like, yeah, we're promoting you to cloud engineer pretty much. And then, you know, I think it was like a 30% range and the promotion, all that kind of stuff. After that, I struggled a lot through that one, but everything that I know because of functions and Blades and that kind of stuff was from that one project, probably like the most impactful one too. Yeah, that's probably, yeah, that's mine.
That kind of reminds like of my project, where basically the problem around that was the fact that there is a lot of like feedback that we receive in textual form from like a number of different places. And so there is actually a team of people that literally go through every single feedback, classifies the sentiment of the feedback, tells whether it's positive, negative, what is it about, and similar. So I was leading this like project of using an AWS infrastructure to actually run NLP workloads on all of this sentiment, both on historical ones, so that everyone can be reclassified through the same model, as well as like in real time. So there is I rebuilt an entire copy of the website using React, Next.js, and TypeScript. And then I built a whole serverless backend that was provisioned via Terraform. And the Lambda was calling AWS Comprehend either on a like batch, so that was like batching a bunch of like feedback pieces that we had stored in our servers, or it was in real time on this like copy of the website that was spun up and it was deployed on AWS. It was hooked on this Terraform Terraform provisioned backend. The Lambda was going through API gateway. It was storing all the results in a DynamoDB table. The DynamoDB table was as soon as the feedback was stored, it was returning it also to the front end. So if you were to say something like, "Oh, I hate this product that I just bought," they were gonna say, "Sorry, person, like sorry name, that you feel about this way about the product." We're gonna be in contact soon, because he already recognized the topic and recognized the sentiment. So there was a number of like states, like he was thinking, okay, if the topic is this and the sentiment is negative, then print this type of message and so on. And that was happening all on client side after this Lambda was hit and Comprehend was doing all their magic. So that was a very complex thing, especially because I did the entire like full stack. So it was the Terraform deployment, AWS handling, front end styling, and all of that. And that was a ton of fun. And I built it in actually a surprisingly short time. I demoed, everyone went crazy, and then everything died down immediately after, which was kind of sad. Like, it was super impactful for me because it was so much pieces of technologies that I wanted to work with. And like then it kind of died down pretty quickly after that, and that was pretty sad. That was like one of the times when I actually started thinking, okay, I think I might want to switch to another job.
That's interesting that you mentioned the demo part, because I remember doing the showcase for the solution, and Azure Monitor has like a real time, like when a function executes, you can have it print in real time, like what's going on. So I remember, like, I was like, all right, I'm gonna have someone generate the files, the 50 files, and then have like the function just pour the output like with the name of the file, and it happened in like, you know, as super quick, and it was like da 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 da, all the file names coming up, and I remember there was a gasp, like, oh, like how quick it was, you know, because there's small things, but it was fun to like see them react to like the real time of like how quick this is, like, you know, instead of spending 2 hours, 4 hours a day, it turns into like a, I don't know, like a minute thing. That was super cool. Yeah, those were good times. But also, just like your solution, it died down after. And I think after I left, since I was the only person who worked on it, I think I might have worked with like another person just to like get some functionality changed on the internal website that was already built. After that, I think like they didn't like provide like proper like updates or things had like no one knew how to like debug it, and that's I guess I don't know because I built it on my own kind of thing. But I mean I learned a lot, so worked out.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, I think it will not be as interesting as your guys' projects, but yeah, COVID hitting, company decided we need to get rid of our physical data center here in Kingston, and we are owned by a company that has a huge data center in Texas. So they were like, yeah, we are not paying for those servers anymore. So there were some internal projects and internal tools that we were using that were being hosted still in the physical data center here in Canada. And 3 of those were managed by us in a way because they were for us, but it was managed by the IT team. So I took the responsibility of lifting and shifting them to cloud, and also had to figure out the CI/CD for, and every website or backend was kind of different. I remember one site used C#, and then there were some sites that were just basic HTML, JavaScript kind of situation, which were easy to like automate their deployment in cloud. But yeah, for C#, I had to I'm like, okay, now I need a Windows box, first of all, to run IIS. And now I have to figure out how to configure it so that every time there's a new push, it deploys. So yeah, there was a lot of learning around that. And yeah, I think the team was really happy with that just because there was no such process in the past. Like the deployment, because it was internal, they would just like upload the folder, like zip the folder and upload it to the internal server and just like update or restart IIS, I guess. And yeah, I think that kind of led me to this transition towards DevOps role. Because this was recent. This was last year when COVID hit. And yeah, after that, I think the other impactful one I'm working on is kind of right now where I'm building Terraform modules from scratch that will be used by the entire IT team in different infrastructures. So I'm building like one for Windows VM for every cloud provider. So Azure, GCP, and then AWS. And then also there was another weird cloud provider, I can't remember. But yeah, and then also like vSphere and stuff. And then similarly for Linux. And also I'll be building like the custom AMIs, like machine images using Packer. So right now I'm trying to learn Packer, and yeah, I think it'll really help to standardize like what we are using in production, especially because there has been a lot of security concerns recently. So we want to make sure like everybody is using a really updated VM and an AMI, and we need to kind of standardize those procedures. So yeah.
Do you, this is sort of like a side note, but do you remember creating your first CI/CD pipeline and thinking like it was magic?
Yeah.
Do you remember that feeling?
Mm-hmm. I do.
It is like still kind of feel like magic. I'm not gonna lie. Like even like building some certain things, when it actually works, maybe not first try, but like second try, is like, oh my god, it is like black magic.
I remember this when like I think I nailed the CI/CD part of it, but what I didn't do was include like the elastic IP. So whenever there was a server reboot, the IP changed, and this happened for the first time, and the site went down, and this was not client facing, it was internal. And I'm like, no, my CI/CD pipelines work. Like, how did the site break? And I was like blaming developers. I'm like, your code broke like my CI/CD pipeline, or your code is the one that's wrong. And then one of the senior developers comes in and he's like, did you check what the IP address is? of the instance itself, and can we go to the IP and see what the web, like if the web page loads. And I went to the IP and the web page loaded. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you're not using elastic IPs. I'm like, dang. And then he showed me right away. He was like, so like
senior engineer.
Yeah, he's like, this is the way to do it. I'm like, oh no. But yeah, once that started working, I'm like, this is so magical because you don't have to touch it again, unless there's like a major change.
Okay, cool. I think we're almost at time limit, so we could get into content of the week. But this was great. I feel like there's a lot of useful stuff in here, and kind of just like thinking back, like remembering those times and those experiences is quite nice. But yeah, let's get into content of the week. I see we all have a bunch here, and I've added a couple actually because there was a couple that I really enjoyed, and I forgot to add. I was gonna add your lo-fi stream that you did, Rishabh, because lately I've been like really trying to find just music that I can have on and not like worry about changing, finding like a new playlist or anything like that. So having just like streams that are like forever or like mixes that are like for 3 hours are so great. So there's a synthwave one that I added that you guys can check out, and then we'll add Rishabh's in there too. I also really want to like shout out to Scott Hanselman's Pretty Prompt, and I think Rishabh, you also have a video on this, right? Like customizing the Windows terminal. No?
Yeah, I remember you wrote an article a bunch of time ago.
I did. Yeah, it was totally inspired by Scott Hanselman, to be honest.
Okay,
I
cool.
just did the my version of it because I'm using a different theme and stuff. But yeah,
I'll have to take a look at that, and we'll add that in here too, because I'm setting up my Windows, like my work laptop, for all that kind of stuff, and I just realized like, oh my goodness, like Windows terminal by default is like not pretty to look at. So that article helped me out too. So the synthwave, Rishabh's mix, Scott Hanselman, and then Rishabh's article as well. Those are my content of the week.
So for my content of the week, one is not exactly content, but it will turn into content over the coming weeks. And Hashnode just started their new hackathon, and this time is with Auth0. So build a project using Auth0, document it, deploy it, and show it to everyone. And actually, this time you get to win money.
$10,000.
I think there's like $10,000 in prizes that I don't think it's like direct money, but it's like things like gift, like Amazon stuff or similar. But still pretty great. And this time like they upped the ante with actual prizes, and that's very cool. And also in terms of content, there's season 6 of the Ladybug podcast that like just started recently. And for those who don't know, Ladybug Podcast is the podcast by Kelly Vaughan, Alice Pitel, Emma Bostian, and Sydney Buckner. And it's wonderful, and they actually just released their first episode of season 6 on tech stacks, and it's a wonderful episode. Was really fun to listen to, and like so much interesting topics about, and similar to the podcast that we had last week, which is funny, and there is so much more to learn about tech stacks in that episode. So it's gonna be in the show notes, and give it a listen whenever you have the chance, because it's a wonderful episode, and all of the other episodes from Ladybug Podcast are always amazing.
Awesome. So for me, it's just one article that goes over how you can enable real-time merge conflicts in VS Code. I have dealt with merge conflicts, and they're not good. So yeah, go check out this article. It's really interesting.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And yeah, I think we should participate in Auth0 hackathon and make the Cloud Code Life website as part of the hackathon.
That would be interesting. I don't think there is a lot of like authentication that you can do on a podcast website.
Section. I don't know.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll talk about that offline, but I was gonna say I'm noticing a lot more articles on Hashnode. Like, have you realized that? Like, I feel like the popularity is like, I used to see only Dev 2 or Dev 2.
Ashnode is growing, and the fact is that to me, the fact about Ashnode is that the people that work for Ashnode are so community driven. Like, there is so much that is like community based, like a lot of like badges, opportunities to like show up on the platforms. Too, right? Hackathons, there's like so many projects that are involving the community, and I think that's where the strong suit of Ashnode is compared to like Dev is more of a kind of traditional like blog publishing platform where like if your content is read by a lot of people, it gets featured, versus Ashnode has a lot of like discoverability for like requests for articles or like town halls where like everyone discusses about certain topics. Like, I feel like Ashnode as a platform is wonderful. I don't write enough blogs, and that's my that's pretty sad, because I feel like video content is easier to make than blogs, in my opinion. But Ashnode is the platform to be for like building your own brand as well. And I think it's like, and then their performance is insane. Like, they recently re-engineered a few things, and like scores for performance is insanely
especially
good.
On phone. Yeah, I was checking it out the other day. It's just insane, especially like on my cellular data. Like, it loads up so fast.
Good to know.
But yeah,
the UI is much nicer too.
Oh, the UI is wonderful. React.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if you're starting out, it's a great platform to build your own like brand, because you can have custom domains, custom CSS, and all those amazing functionality that I think other platforms are lacking right now. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't been writing myself. I think I wrote for like 16 months regularly, 2 articles every month, and then I don't know, I just fall out of it because of YouTube.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to like balance both of them. I too find blogs, like, I remember I did that one 8 Cloud Guru blog post on like studying for certifications, and I was like, I just sat there, I'm like, I don't ever know how I'm going to get this done. I eventually did, but like videos come like so much easier to me. Yeah, blog content is just
the thing is that it's always the thing is that like videos, I can make them a little bit more impromptu, versus writing is very intentional. Like I don't feel like writing on my phone for a long blog post or something. Like, I would write it on a tweet or something, but compared to like via a video, potentially I can set up my phone in front of me very quickly and shoot a video if I really want to. Writing a blog post, it means that I have to sit on my computer and work. And it's always like I have to enter the headspace to do blog work. So yeah,
I think how I got into the headspace of like actually writing was just writing about stuff that I would rather, like, even if I'm not blogging about it, I would have documented it in my Notion or something, because I'm learning all these new technologies. So that was my take on it. I'm like, okay, this is a good way to document. It's just like public instead of just being private. But yeah, if you tell me like I have to write a blog post on, I don't know, AWS certifications, I would rather talk about them than to write a blog post.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So lots of good content for this week. I do have some shout outs. I don't know if you all have any, but I wanted to shout out a couple of listeners. First one is Stacy Lockie. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Junior SOC analyst, and I think I sent y'all a screenshot, but she mentioned that she listens to us in our new episodes while at the gym, which is great. It's kind of cool to know that we have people who like listen to us at, like, I don't know, while they're doing other activities. So that's kind of cool. And also big shout out to Marco Livanchik. I think that's how you pronounce that. Again, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name. I probably am. Network ops engineer, says he's looking forward to more episodes. So yeah, great, y'all. We have like building a little bit of a community around the podcast, and that's super cool. But yeah, big shout out to people who listen to us. I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover in this episode. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I would say not off the top of my head, other than I'm really happy to see people getting like very excited about the new episodes, and also about the TikTok promos that are happening. That's interesting. It's the TikTok experience is cool. Like, so if you are a TikTok user, follow us on Cloud Code Live as well. Look us up there, because we might have some also extra content outside of the podcast itself there, because it's so easy to just create content for there. So if you have any questions, as always, you can follow up on any platform that you may think of.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Ready to end it, everyone?
All right. Yes, so as always, thank you so much for listening to this episode 5 of Cloud Call Live. We hope to see you next week as well. And as always, peace.